What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 104.3 The Fans Pregame Live. Merry Christmas to all. We've got Cecil, Lammy, Andrew Mason in LA, and Rachel VL hanging out with you for the next 15 minutes as we get you set for the Broncos taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Gentlemen, Merry Christmas to both of you. Mace, how has the traveling been so far?
Well, considering some of the nightmares other people had, my travel was smooth. My flight was on time. I didn't have to check a bag. I had a lovely night last night. My trip's been great, but when I got to to DIA yesterday, and I walked past the baggage claim and saw probably literally thousands of bags just sitting there because people they're not making it with anybody's flight, so and so they're not claimed, and then they have to take them all around the area. I'm just glad I'm here in one piece, and I didn't have any issues. So
Romy had to borrow one of Mace's Hawaiian shirts, so shout out Romy.
Serious?
No, I'm kidding. No, she's had. I don't think she has her luggage. So
yeah. She posted a video last night over at the nearby shopping mall that she's like she just kind of like grab a shirt, grab stuff because she didn't have anything to wear on camera today because her suitcase didn't make it.
Oh, no. Yeah, I saw some of her stories. I was hopeful that she was going to get her bag early this morning. Obviously, had to figure out something. Well, hopefully everybody else had easy travels getting out there. I know, again, with the weather and the Arctic freeze, it was a little difficult. But safe travels to anybody who did travel for the holiday. How many times can I say travel in one sentence right there? But we'll get into this game here we got today. You guys, these are 2 4-10 teams. Like, we're not talking anything with playoffs, but it is kind of interesting because obviously, we've got the defending Super Bowl champions. They're not having a great season. Sean McVay is in this weird place. It seems like a lot of people are thinking he's going to be leaving coaching, what he's going to do next. But if you are paying attention to the game today, what are you looking at, Cecil?
Yeah, what I'm looking at is who wants to be here from a Broncos perspective, because I could give a damn about the Rams. I mean, I'll have to pay attention to the Rams, but for this show and for what we do, like, whatever. But who wants to be with the Broncos? Who's going to put forth that effort? And I anticipate we'll see quite the effort from some of the young players. That's what the end of the season is all about in these type of situations. You always look at who are the young players. If a Jalen Virgil gets an opportunity, or Brandon Johnson, or whoever, Greg Dulcich, right? There's a young player we all can have hopes for the future with. But you're wanting to see like who's putting forth that extra effort, and you've seen it before. The momentum that carried over. I can name several players. Willie Parker, late in his first year with the Steelers, had like a big game against the Bills in the final week of the season, had 1,000 yards rushing the next year. Steve McNair flashed late in the season and then went on to become a perennial Pro Bowl type of quarterback. So this type of games and these situations, it doesn't mean anything, but it means something to the players and their further development. So I'm anxious to see which one of the young ones stands out today.
Well, yeah, and like Deshaun Williams said after the game last week, it's not just wanting to do well in the moment. It's the knowledge that, hey, you're putting it out there for the 31 other teams as well. So whether you're going to be a part of this or not, and we know with expiring contracts, changes are inevitable. You want to see you want to see the effort. I think you will see the effort on both sides today, just because you have guys that are playing for their future. So if you're not playing hard for reasons beyond yourself, at least you're playing hard for your own career.
Very true. I know inactives are not out yet, but there were a few names on the questionable list, including Cortland Sutton, Dalton, or Reisner. Have you been able to see them out on the field yet, Mason? If so, how are they looking?
I mean, Randy Gregory, questionable. He didn't practice all week, but he was moving around pretty well. And according to Mike Kliss, Gregory's going to be active today, despite not practicing all week. And then I expect Cortland Sutton's going to play. I expect Dalton Reisner's going to play. They were all trending in that direction throughout the week.
Okay, good. And Kendall Hinton will be out, correct?
He got ruled out. He has not practiced since he hurt his hamstring 2 weeks ago. So just the latest. Another guy missing time because of a hamstring injury. Darius Phillips very quietly also went on injured reserve this week because he's dealing with a hamstring injury. So it's just keep on coming.
How many hamstrings does that make for this team? Are we above 15 yet?
I believe Kendall Hinton is the 12th different player to miss at least one game with a hamstring injury. But you've had guys that have missed multiple runs of games because of hamstring issues. Like Andrew Beck missed a couple, came back, they missed a couple of more. Darius Phillips dealt with multiple hamstring injuries. But but it's 12 players that have missed at least one game this year because of hamstrings. So that's way too many.
Ugh, far too many. Well, the big news also coming out yesterday is that Vic Fangio could possibly be teaming up with Sean Payton to become a defensive coordinator if Payton does, in fact, return to coaching. I'm curious what both of your feelings are on this, because a lot of people are like, hey, this would be a great fit. And a couple other people are like, could this ever possibly happen for the Broncos? Cecil?
It was always a pipe dream. I don't even really think we need much further on that. Mase obviously going to listen to what you have to say, but the Sean Payton thing, while I was a fan of thinking about it, I also had the realization like it was never going to happen. Like it was a pipe dream. It's probably going to be Dan Quinn next year. So let's go Broncos, right? But the Sean Payton thing, let's put that in the past. And Vic Fangio ain't coming back to be the DC here.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly it's not something that's kind of finalized that Vic's going to be wherever Sean Payton goes. But I mean, I think it's testament to what Payton wants, what kind of staff he wants to put together. But around here, it's just, I mean, the pipe dream is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, the interesting thing though is, I think Sean Payton was thinking Chargers as first choice. But if they win tomorrow night, they are in very good shape to make the playoffs. It's because New England's fading, the Jets are fading. It's basically trending toward the Chargers being in the postseason. And if they are in the postseason, then that takes that LA team off the table. The other LA team could be very much on the table for Sean Payton services if Sean McVay does step away. So and that I would still say would be the favorite, but. We know this with Broncos ownership. I mean, no one will outbid them in terms of cash, but there may just be better situations for Sean Payton.
Yeah, better opportunity. And just super quick, talking about the Chargers, I wrote about it in around the AFC West on DenverFan.com. Real winnable games, and they're the type of team, Mase, if they're healthy, nobody wants to play them in the post. I mean, they could go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
And if they're getting over the choking, which the Chargers have always choked, in the last couple of weeks in close games, they haven't choked, largely because of Justin Herbert. If they get over that and they get healthy and they go to the postseason, nobody's going to want to face the Chargers.
Yeah, and relevant to the Broncos, of course, the Broncos see them in Week 18. The Chargers may well be safely in the playoffs, but there's a decent chance they're still battling for the possibility of being the 5th seed. And that's huge because if you're the 3rd seed, you're going to have to play in all likelihood at Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati. If you're the 5th seed, though, you're going to play at the AFC South winner, which is going to be the winner of the Titans-Jaguars game in Week 18. So where would you rather go? Would you rather go to Nashville against Malik Willis? Would you rather go to Jacksonville? And they're a hot team, no doubt. But would you rather go there, or would you rather play in Cincinnati in round 1? So that carrot out there for the Chargers could mean that in Week 18 you get their best effort because they may well be playing for something that could propel them on an unexpected run in January.
So if we think that the Chargers could possibly make a run, where do we see Sean Payton going? It's just the hot name in coaching. Like everybody has an opinion on where they believe Sean Payton's going to go right now.
Well, it was coffee break. I said it was staying with the Saints. A lot of people around New Orleans believe that to be the case. We'll see. Maybe the Rams, where Mase is sitting right now. But do you really want to go there? Matthew Stafford is broken. Aaron Donald might retire. Like their pockets are kind of empty because they put it all on the table and they want it all. Congrats. But man, rebuilding that thing would be tough in LA.
I mean, even though it's a messed up organization right now, sometimes you also wonder if maybe the Houston Texans step in here as a dark horse because it's unless they blow it by winning the next 2 games, they're going to have the number 1 pick, which means they're going to get Bryce Young, and he's a premium prospect at quarterback, and so they may actually offer the best situation. Remember, if he goes back to New Orleans, that's well and good. New Orleans doesn't have a 1st round pick next year because they made what in retrospect was a very foolish deal, overestimating kind of where they stood. And so I don't think it'll be Houston. I think Sean Payton may look at the ownership of Cal McNair and say, I want no part of that. But boy, oh boy, if you look at a team that just has the right landscape and has the pieces to where someone like Sean Payton could microwave it quickly with a young quarterback, Houston makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I actually haven't really heard the Texans name thrown in too much, so that would be interesting. Cecil, you said Dan Quinn for the next Broncos head coach, but you kind of gave I'm not super excited about it. Why?
It's Dan Quinn. Solid, respectable, all these sorts of good things. Obviously, the spin will be out there, but it's like, okay, it's Dan Quinn. It's not exactly sexy or exciting like everybody wants, but is it the right fit? At the end of the day, that's all I care about. I don't care how much sexy, high tons, none. Does it fit with Russell Wilson? You go forward with Russell Wilson. That's what you're going to have to do if you're the Broncos. So figure it out. You can get good football out of Russell Wilson. It has to be the right fit. So Dan Quinn, Brian Schottenheimer, redo Seattle, run the ball, play great defense. It may not be what Russ exactly wants, winning from the pocket, but you can find ways to get good football out of him. It has to be the right fit. So Dan Quinn is probably that fit.
And I'm more excited, Rachel and Cease, about Dan Quinn than a lot of people would be if he were the next coach. One of the reasons why is, Cease mentions Brian Schottenheimer. Dan Quinn is very good at identifying coaches for his staff. Like his Atlanta staff was excellent. He batted 1,000 in terms of finding offensive coordinators who built top 10 offenses in Atlanta. So he knows how to put a staff together. He had, it wasn't just like Kyle Shanahan. He had, Mike McDaniel, a younger Mike McDaniel on his staff. So I think Quinn would put together an excellent staff of teachers and up and coming coaches that I think would get the most out of this team. I think the interesting question is, what would he do defensively? And to me, if Dan Quinn said, like what you're doing, Ejiro, and to all the position coaches, we're going to keep things status quo, I think I'd be pretty thrilled with that. There's a little connection there, by the way, on Dan Quinn and Ejiro Evero indirectly, because one of Dan Quinn's top assistants in Atlanta was Raheem Morris, who is now on the Los Angeles Rams staff, and of course worked hand in hand with Ejiro Evero. And so I think if you brought in Dan Quinn, I think he would willing give the keys defensively to Coach E and say, do what you've been doing, keep that up, and I'm going to run this whole operation.
Okay, interesting. I've actually had a few conversations with Dan Quinn, always been very respectable. So it'd be interesting to kind of see him land here. But I know it's like a lot of people are on board or they're definitely not on board. So it's an interesting conversation to be had. But now, of course, what happens if Nathaniel Hackett wins this game today and the next upcoming weeks? Does he end up saving his job, or is it officially done here in Denver, Cecil?
I mean, why? Like, if you say he wins the next, he wins out, right? He shuts out Kansas City. I go, what happened in the first 10 games? I know, momentum, and they haven't given up on him. Like, all the stuff we can say positive about Nathaniel Hackett, and there are some things. But the damage has been done. And the fact that you can't get a hold on Russell Wilson, he mishandled Russell Wilson from day one. You need an adult in the room, not a fanboy. What'd you think of Brett Ripp's performance? Russ is starting next week. Say hi to Sierra. Russ, do you like me? Am I your best friend, Russ? Like, we don't need that. You need an adult in the room. That's where Dan Quinn can come in and tell Russell, this is what we're doing. And Russell will say, yes, sir. Russell Wilson is not a bad soldier. He's not going to fight against that. He may ask questions, but the why is very important. You have a head coach now that doesn't really give the why because he's just, whatever you want, Russ. Let's do what Russ does and whatever Russ wants. So to me, these next games don't matter except for the players. Get rid of Nathaniel Hackett and move forward.
Mase, real quick. Cecil, isn't that on George Payton, though, to mishandle from day one and less on Nathaniel Hackett? I mean, you kind of have to follow suit of what your boss does, right?
Well, they should have known better. What is that? Kenny Loggins, Mase? Who is that? Should have known better.
Richard Marks.
Richard Marks.
Richard Marks.
Yes. There. I think we've talked about that on Orange and Blue today. So, I'm going to go Richard Marks. They should have known better than to fall in love with Hackett.
Well, another Richard Marks song was Right Here Waiting. The Broncos and their fans are right here waiting for success to come. But to go back to the original question here, I don't think today means all that much. I think a loss, a bad offensive performance, it could only hurt. I don't think it's going to help. If Nathaniel Hackett is around next year, he needs a win in one of the 2 final games. And assuming the Chargers are playing for something. If the Chargers aren't playing for anything, if they're locked into the number 6 seed and they can't move up and they can't move down, then you lose the capacity for that game to kind of change the trajectory. And then it probably does become all on that Chiefs game on New Year's Day. You pull off an upset in that game, I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be back.
Yeah, my biggest thing is just the stacking of wins, right? Do we all of a sudden semi-forget what happened the first couple of weeks of the season, or I guess, 10 weeks, 14 weeks up and through the season? Do we forget about that because, we saw a lot of progress? So that's where my biggest
And it was always there. I know we're up against it, and I apologize, but the frustrating thing for me, what makes me most mad, is this was always there. Always there. Hey, 24 carries for running back. Shocker, it worked. Hey, play action passing. Hey, zone concepts. Hey, bootlegs, rollouts. This was always there. This could have been, instead of 10 losses, they could have 10 wins right now. We could have a much different conversation because the players, even through all these damn injuries, the players, that quality has always been there.
Yeah.
No. 100%. First of all, also last thing for you two, I am loving the chemistry that we're getting. I love the Cecil, the Mase. The chemistry is there. Orange and Blue Today is a wonderful show. You can catch it every single weekday at 3:30 p.m. These two have a blast for a full 30 minutes. But that is going to do it for our pregame live. The Broncos taking on the Rams here on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas again to everybody. Happy holidays. And we will be back for halftime chill after the first half. Bye, everybody.